Deb Irving with Bankers Compliance Consulting. If you haven't already seen the October 2020 FINCIN advisory on human trafficking and related activity, this will give you a general overview of what that advisory covered. The advisory was issued in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And you're probably wondering, what does COVID-19 have to do with human trafficking? Well, the pandemic can exacerbate the conditions that contribute to human trafficking. So as support structures for potential victims collapse, human traffickers take advantage of those that are vulnerable. So to put this into perspective, picture this. Let's say you're working at an hourly pay, an hourly job, and it's barely keeping you above the poverty level. You likely have no significant savings. Maybe you're a single parent, so you have a child to support. Then COVID-19 comes along. The quarantine cost you your job, and unemployment just isn't enough to get you by with your rent and to provide for your basic needs like food and diapers. Family and friends can't help because they may often be in the same boat. After the quarantine lifts, you apply for every job out there, but you never get a single call back. Then finally you get a break, or you think you do. Someone you vaguely know says they have a way you can make money. Maybe it's something you wouldn't normally do, but you're desperate for income, and this is only a one-time thing, and it will just get some income in the door to get you by. That person takes a big cut out of the money that you make and urges you to do whatever it takes to make more. Maybe there's threats to you, maybe there's threats to your child or your family. Maybe there are promises that hold out the only hope that you have. Maybe it's a mixture of both. Maybe there's violence involved. This is sex trafficking in the United States, and COVID-19 has just made you a target. That is why this advisory was issued. What the advisory did was it provided additional red flags since the 2014 advisory on human trafficking was issued. So it doesn't replace that previous advisory, but it supplements it. It provides 20 new red flags for financial and behavioral indications of human trafficking. And it provides 4 new typologies or methods that human traffickers are using to launder those ill-gotten funds. And then it gives you new information in identifying and reporting this type of activity. And it provides 2 case studies, which I think were a very important part of this advisory, because these are actual cases that shed light on the types of activity that indicated that the human trafficking was there, and it led to the actual arrest and conviction of those traffickers. So let's look at the 4 new typologies in the advisory. The first one is the use of front companies. So these might be fictitious or actual entities or businesses that the traffickers have set up. They're using these companies to launder their ill-gotten proceeds. So they are combining the illegal funds with the legal funds of the actual business to conceal where the illegal funds are coming from. So what can you do to look for that? Let's use for an example the types of entities that you may see doing this. There's bars, restaurants, massage businesses, escort services. Let's use a bar for an example. You have a customer that's a bar. Maybe you have several customers that are bars. Is one bringing in more cash? Does one seem to have a lot better business going on? Is the volume a lot higher? How does that compare to their peers in the same community? Oftentimes the payments from illegal activities like human trafficking are in cash. So does that cash volume fit that type of business, and how does it compare again to their peers with the same types of business in the same community? Then traffickers often take those assets, those funds, and purchase high value assets with them, such as real estate or cars. So are you seeing that money going out fairly soon after it comes in? Are there large amounts going out? Can you see where they're going or what they're for? The next typology is a little more difficult to identify from a financial perspective, but it's exploitative employment practices. So labor recruiters are defrauding their victims through wage retention, misleading them about the conditions and the nature of the job, and they're confiscating or destroying their identity documents. They also charge fees to recruit potential victims and to give them these job opportunities. So maybe the fee income is something that you can see. Another thing you might be able to see is what the traffickers do is they withhold some of these victims' salaries. So they could be coming in with their victims. Oftentimes the traffickers will escort their victim into the bank and they will do the transaction for them. And you may see that type of behavior, and perhaps they'll even be taking some of that paycheck back themselves. And then sometimes the victim's salary is transferred to the traffickers through teller checks or through wire transfers. So that could be something else you could see that could indicate this typology of exploitative employment practices. The third one is using funnel accounts. So this is where you have an individual or business account in one geographic area that receives multiple cash deposits or deposits from other areas, other accounts and other geographical areas, all funneling into the one account. Typically they're cash deposits and they're below a reporting threshold, and you'll see rapid turnaround between the deposits coming in and the money going out. Again, you might see traffickers escorting their victims into the bank to open these type of accounts or to conduct the transactions with them. And then the last typology is alternative payment methods. So in addition to payments in cash around human trafficking activity, traffickers also accept and use credit cards, prepaid cards, mobile payment applications, and convertible virtual currency, which is a whole other hot topic in itself that you'll be hearing a lot more about in the coming days. What the traffickers do, for example, is they may purchase prepaid cards with their ill-gotten funds. So they use that cash and they buy prepaid cards. Then they turn around and they use the prepaid cards to buy virtual currency. Then they use the virtual currency to buy online advertisements for commercial sex, so the human trafficking. So what they've just done is they've layered that process of laundering their money through the financial system to get the illegal proceeds in and back out to support their activity. And then you'll often see traffickers using third-party payment processes to feed their funds through the financial system. So another thing that this advisory provided was SAR filing instructions. So they specifically want you to reference this advisory in the SAR if your SAR is in reference to human trafficking. And there is a box that you can check on the SAR that indicates human trafficking activity. And do not report your victim as the suspect of the SAR. They are the victim, not the perpetrator. So information about the victim would just be referenced in the narrative. And then lastly, the advisory provided you those additional red flags. So I challenge you to update your human trafficking training, or if you're not already training on it, here's your opportunity to, and incorporate this new advisory, the new information and the new red flags into your training for human trafficking.